Alright guys, Manchester City have just beaten Arsenal away at the Emirates by 3 goals to 1 in a very interesting game. To be fair, it was a really good watch. I thought first half and second half were two very different games. First half we saw Man City play a strange formation that similar to what they have been doing recently, although there were a couple of changes to it. Bernardo Silva seemed to almost be doing like a man-to-man marking job on Bukayo Saka throughout the first half, almost playing left back at times, which sort of suited the way City's defence was set up with Kyle Walker, Diaz and Ake, because that means Ake can play alongside Diaz in a familiar centre-back role, and Walker doesn't have to focus too much on, you know, being a defender. He can sort of leave Martinelli at times and let Diaz focus on him if he wants to go forward. But the problem with this formation was that it meant that City at times with who they had playing in midfield and how De Bruyne plays for Man City, it meant that they could occasionally get outnumbered when Arsenal do push players forward, because we saw Zinchenko and Tomiyasu occasionally come into Arsenal's midfield alongside Jorginho, Xhaka and Ødegaard. So Pep had to change something at half-time because Arsenal were creating chances. The best one I thought they had was Nketiah's header. In fact, he had two similar chances where he's sort of had to reach for the header a little bit and he's tried to glance it. And when you do that, you're always risking it skimming off your head and not making proper contact, and that's what happened on both occasions. Whereas the safer option for Nketiah, where he's more guaranteed to get it on target, is to just go back across goal. They always say head it where it came from. It's the best opportunity you've got of scoring. So yeah, that's where Arsenal's best two chances in this game came from. And it was actually City who did take the lead through Kevin De Bruyne, and it comes from a ball over the top, basically, where Haaland is, I think it was Haaland or somebody is chasing down Tomiyasu, and this actually shows what style of football City were playing in the first half, because the game was very much played in City's half for the majority of the time. And the ball over the top, Tomiyasu he's sort of panicking a little bit, and it's not the best back pass. But I also feel as though you look at Gabriel in this instance, and he can see what's about to happen in front of him, and possibly Ramsdale as well. One of them has got to give Tomiyasu a better option, because it's a difficult pass on his weaker foot. And yeah, Tomiyasu does what feels inevitable, plays it too short, and De Bruyne gets on the end of it. And it is a brilliant finish from De Bruyne on his weak foot to, be that clinical and that decisive in that moment on what he wanted to do. It was really impressive, but it is what you expect from a really experienced top player like De Bruyne, who for me is probably the best technical footballer in the Premier League. So yeah, brilliantly taken goal, and that I felt like that was going to be a bit of a punch in the gut for Arsenal, because I didn't know how they were going to come back from that because of how they have been playing recently and the results they've had over the past 2 weeks against Everton and Brentford. The Everton game, Everton were the better side, and I think even in the Brentford game, Brentford had better chances. So it was questionable of will Arsenal be able to come back from this. And to be fair to them, they did. They continued their momentum that they had in the first half, the remainder of the half, and they got a penalty, and it came from Nketiah trying to put the ball into the back of the net. Ederson's closed him down, and it gets cleared off the line from Nketiah's shot. Now, Ederson doesn't get close to the ball, but he's come out, he's got to try and block Nketiah, because that's a goalkeeper's job. He's got to try and block Nketiah's shot. He doesn't, and he's not gone to ground to do it. So if he goes to ground and takes Nketiah's legs out, that's a penalty all day long. But it's the fact that Nketiah is mid-air at this point, because he's sort of trying to get out of the way of it. And Ederson can't stop himself. If Ederson tries to stop himself in that moment, there's only one thing that's going to happen. He's just going to go over himself, almost like head over toes. And so anyway, in that situation, Ederson's going to collide with Nketiah. So for me, I think it was a very harsh penalty. Bukayo Saka took it and scored it. And yeah, Saka this season with penalties is been very clinical, which is good to see, that he's not, sort of shied away from the duty of taking penalties after what did happen to him during the Euros, and good on him, and that made it all square. And in the second half, this is where the game changed. Pep Guardiola made a substitution early on, taking off Riyad Mahrez, who didn't have a bad game, I wouldn't say, but he wasn't having this impact I think Pep would have wanted him to, and I don't think City were functioning as a team the way that Pep would have wanted them to with the formation they were playing. So a change was definitely needed, and who did he bring on? He brought on Akanji, and that meant that Ake shifted into the left-back role, which he has played many times this season, and you had Akanji and Diaz as centre-back. And this made it a lot more easy for City, and I also thought that De Bruyne changed the way he was playing. He played a lot more deeper in the second half, as opposed to playing off Haaland, in almost off Haaland in the first half. And then Bernardo Silva was pushed out onto the right, and that just kept Zinchenko occupied at all times. It stopped Zinchenko from being able to get into the midfield, because when Zinchenko's up against Mahrez isn't someone who is going to, run through brick walls, whereas Bernardo Silva is that type of player. He's a lot more energetic off the ball, maybe not as technically gifted with the ball at his feet. He's a very good dribbler, Bernardo Silva, but when it comes to someone like cutting in like Mahrez does, basically on the edge of the box, cutting onto his left foot, you want Mahrez, not Bernardo Silva, is what I'm trying to get at here. But Silva did the job that was required of him very well in keeping Zinchenko from getting into the midfield. So it made the midfield battle a lot more easy for City to win in the second half, which was a big reason why they did win this game in the end. So that substitution of bringing on Akanji for Mahrez was smart. A lot of people are saying it's smart from Pep, but I think that it was what was needed in the first place. I don't understand why Guardiola does have this insistence, and it feels like it's only been this season. Like, he's had this winning formula now at Manchester City for the past 5 years. He's won 4 out of 5 titles, but why does he feel the need to change it this particular season? I understand that you've got Erling Haaland in the team, and they're maybe trying not to play the football as much in the opposition's half, because that's not what Haaland's game is. Haaland's game is about getting in behind, so maybe they are trying to let the opposition have a bit more of the ball and let them get a bit more confidence so Haaland can get in behind. But I don't think you should ever change your style of football to fit around one player. So it's that ongoing debate of, do you suit Haaland or do you not? I think based on what has happened this season for City and the fact that they haven't been quite as good in terms of winning games and getting points on the board, because I think they're on 51 points now after 23 games. So I think halfway through the season, on 19 games, they were on about something like 43, something like that points. So double it, and they're on 86, which isn't quite as good as what they have been doing in recent years. So you could argue that it hasn't quite worked, then changing their system to suit Haaland. But in this game, I thought Haaland was better in terms of getting involved in play and causing Arsenal problems in defence, especially in the second half, that is, because he was involved in both of the goals in the second half. I mean, he scored one of them, but the second goal from Grealish, it was a really well taken goal, but I think it came at a point in the game where Arsenal were almost trying to be too smart and City were trying to be more proactive, and it felt as though Arsenal had this false sense of security when they had the ball in possession in and around the defence and the deeper midfield players like Jorginho and Xhaka. So when City did press them a bit more and try to be, more on the front foot, Arsenal sort of panicked, and this led to them being caught a little bit out of position when City did win the ball high up the pitch, and this resulted in the second goal from Grealish when the ball was just played, there was about 3 passes where it just went from right to left continuously. I think it was Silva to Haaland to Gundogan to Grealish, and Grealish tucks it in the back of the net via a small deflection of Tomiyasu, which I think did just about enough to take away from Ramsdale. I think Tomiyasu was a bit unlucky in this game, to be fair, because I think there will be a lot of people who criticise him, but I don't think the first 2 goals there was a lot he could do about it. The second one, he's got to go for it, he's got to try and block it. In the first one, it isn't the easiest back pass when you've got 2 teammates who aren't really showing for the ball enough. So yeah, I think he's been a bit unfortunate in this game, to be fair to Tomiyasu. And then the final goal from Haaland, it's just a fantastic finish. Let's be honest, it's a good pullback from De Bruyne. De Bruyne had to put a bit of pace on it, and from Haaland, it's just a brilliant touch. And this is the advantage you get from a player having such explosive power and long legs, because he manages to just about hook his right foot around it and fire it into the bottom corner. But I think I would criticise Gabriel again a little bit for this goal as well. I don't think Gabriel had a good game at all. In fact, he did give away a penalty early on in the second half, but it was overruled because of an offside where Haaland was just on the wrong side of him. And I felt for Haaland's goal, Gabriel, he tries to tackle or win the ball off Haaland with his wrong foot, and it was a bit of a weak challenge. But for the disallowed penalty, I felt as though they were both fouling each other a little bit. So I think it was the right decision to overrule it, but they didn't overrule it because it wasn't a penalty. They overruled it because it was offside. So if you at least they got the right decision in the end is the main thing. Else that would have caused some confusion. That's 100% for sure. But this now means that City are joint on points with Arsenal. I think they're above Arsenal on goal difference. I'm not sure about that, but Arsenal do have the game in hand. So, the return fixture at the Etihad is going to be a really big game in deciding the title this season. I think you have to probably back Man City in that one based on this game and the fact that City do have a much better record at the Etihad as opposed to away from home this season. But yeah, it will for sure definitely be a really tight game. So that will be really interesting to see. I think it's coming up soon as well. It's sometime at the beginning of March, I'm pretty sure. So it's not too far away. But, there is a lot of time between now and the end of the season. Things could change like that. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.